Do 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 intro music. Hello, and thank you for joining us for episode 2 of Winging It with the Wignalls. I'm Nikki.
I'm Chris.
And today we're going to talk to you about why and how we've never really been one for following traditions. So in our last episode, we were talking about our wedding day, tips and tricks for wedding planning, and our advice for people that are either coming up to their wedding day or maybe know that they're getting engaged soon. And we both realised afterwards that one of the big things that we missed off in our advice for couples would be about following tradition, and how just because something is the done thing, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing for you. But I think before we get into the specifics of ways we didn't follow tradition on our wedding day, Chris, you kind of had what tradition means to you.
Yeah, so the way I see what tradition is, it's something that people do regularly, and it can also be passed down sort of from generations, etc. Either cultural or just sort of a societal actions that are done. And so I find this quite difficult, because I find interactions between people or understanding them as quite difficult. So I've kind of got to base all of my actions and what I do on what I've learnt just by observing people. And a difficulty I come across with is that I'll see something, a tradition, this is how something's done, or a tradition, and it will seem illogical or not make any sense to me, and oftentimes just a waste of time and money. So that's kind of been where some of our particular, bucking tradition, as it were, has come from. Or even another thing, as I'll bring up later, is that I'll find out afterwards that I just completely didn't realise there were a number of things that were expected to have been done, that I just completely missed because I didn't know about them.
And do you think that stems from your autism, or is it?
Oh yeah. No, that's definitely it. And also the needing to understand and just create a sort of a framework of, how to interact with people and the rest of the world, and then setting out all of these little rules for myself and what to do in different situations. But yeah, traditions is one of those things that kind of bypasses a lot of that. It throws all the rules out the window, and so almost seems like people are making it up as they go along, or it came from hundreds of years ago where the rules were different at the time, but we're just using those sort of past rules for current day particular event or whatever. So yeah.
I remember years ago, and I can't remember who it was, but someone that I follow on Instagram who's neurospicy, I remember seeing they shared being neurodivergent is like knowing that everyone else in the world has a handbook, but you've not been allowed to read it or look at it. Is that kind of how you feel about traditions? It's like everyone else just knows about them, but you've never seen.
Oh, 100%. Or if you try and play a complex game, but you don't have the rule book, you're kind of making it up as you go along. But also everyone else you're playing with are sort of intermediate to expert.
They've all got the cheat codes.
That's it. They've got all the cheat codes. They've got years of experience doing this, and they just know all of these things. And so, yeah, that's the thing. I suppose one of the big general anxieties I have is if I'm just following along with my observed things and then doing something wrong and upsetting someone, but having followed these rules that I've, curated for myself, but they don't apply in all situations. So
that's really interesting. Yeah. So going back to what we were talking about in our first episode with the wedding day, is there anything that jumps out for you as something we did or didn't do as part of the wedding that was kind of against or not following the traditional way it's done?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things. I didn't necessarily have a best man. I had my groomsman. That was kind of a personal thing, because I didn't want to have to choose between, you know, the four closest people to me. I feel like I'm very fortunate to have that number of people with those really close relationships. I just basically refuse to rank them, essentially, and
Which is fair.
put someone, you know, especially as two of the groomsmen were my two brothers. I'm not gonna say any one of them, or even infer by making the decision that one of them meant more to me, which it just isn't the case. So that, yeah, that was one thing. One thing that was very me, was that I didn't rent or buy a really fancy suit, even though I went to Brighton with some of the groomsmen to check out all the various suits and things. I actually found a suit from Next was the perfect one for me, because I wanted a suit that I could wear for other things. But also then getting it the inner lining with a Hawaiian print.
That you got done at a tailor's specially.
That's it.
And cost you more than the suit itself.
It did, but I still reckon that suit was cheaper than anyone else has done.
Yeah.
You know, it was probably still cheaper than renting a suit for the day. So
and very you.
Exactly, and I can now wear that. That's definitely a me suit, and it's understated enough that I can wear that for other, you know, smart casual things.
I think it's so important, particularly if you're a bit neurospicy like us, to be comfortable in a big event like that, especially on your wedding day. If you're wearing something that doesn't make you feel like yourself, or the material doesn't feel quite right on you, or the cut doesn't feel quite right, or you're not comfortable, that's going to really detract from your day.
100%. Yeah, you should. Yeah, there's a couple of I think a couple of ties that you bought me years ago that I still call my power ties, so that I'll wear for job interviews and things. And it's important to have something that you wear that gives you a positive thing. But in, you know, a similar way, if I was wearing something that felt alien to me, or just it wasn't me, yeah, it would have really detracted from the whole day, or distracted me at the least. Yeah, the other sort of primary thing that I was thinking about that we didn't do, that was particularly traditional, was planning it all ourselves, which included, you know, making everything and setting everything up and taking everything down. So even though that was, you know, a lot more exhausting and took a lot more out of us, it very much allowed us to have a unique and very us wedding, which was amazing, you know.
Yeah, I think a lot of people said about our wedding, of weddings they've been to, was one of the weddings that felt most like the couple that were getting married.
That's it.
And I think that's because we did it in my parents' back garden. We didn't have a venue dictating what decorations we could have, what food. We didn't get a wedding planner that came in and kind of potentially, you know, steered the way that some of the things would look. Or I always remember my friend saying, like, on her wedding day, her decorator came in and added a big red bow around their wedding cake, which had nothing to do with their colour scheme or vibe.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
That was kind of, you know, all she could think about when it all came out. And you know, if you're the only ones doing the planning, yes, it's harder, but you have control of everything, and, you know, setting it up in a way that feels like you, but also makes you feel the most comfortable.
That's it. And it's not going to feel like a wedding from a catalogue almost, you know, with different options. What about you?
Yeah, so I think there are quite a few ways that we didn't follow tradition, and just kind of the whole wedding day in general was very, as you said, it didn't look like what you tend to see in magazines. It was kind of more like a garden party festival, child party, if anything, with bubble wands and fancy dress and sparklers and lots of fairy lights. It was very us. But specifically, I mean, similarly to what you were saying about the groomsmen, I didn't have a maid of honour. As you were saying, I didn't want to rank them. And I think also having a maid of honour, that puts a lot of pressure on just one person. The maid of honour then becomes responsible for doing the hen party. I didn't feel that was fair to kind of do to one person.
Hadn't thought of that, actually, but yeah, distributing the work required, you know, expected of them.
If they all have different, the same level of, air quotes, seniority, then they can kind of work out between them what people are comfortable to take on. So I found that worked really well, I think, for both of us, not having kind of one person singled out on either the bridal or groom party. The wedding dress for me is a big one that stands out. I mean, for starters, my wedding dress was pink. I just knew from the start, it was one of the first things when we got engaged. I knew that my wedding dress wouldn't be white because I've never felt myself in white. It's not ever been a colour I've particularly enjoyed wearing. So my rainbow pink dress that I got custom made on Etsy from a different country, so I couldn't try it on before. I didn't go out and do the bride's fittings. And I think most of all, the thing that really surprised people was that I showed you before. You were the first person I showed when it turned up.
Yeah, you said that a lot of people were quite shocked or just didn't understand. You know, that was one of, almost felt like that was one of those ingrained rules that, you know, you could do all of these other things differently, but that one, or
that really rocked the boat.
Heaven forbid I have seen or even helped you make a decision on some of the elements of your dress.
Because I knew for me it would help me feel more confident. It would take a lot of the pressure off the wedding morning. A lot of the stuff that we did that was kind of outside of what you'd usually expect was all about taking the pressure off for us and doing things that would help our slightly neurospicy brains not get overwhelmed. And I also knew for you, you know, the moment that you saw me walking down the aisle was going to be very overwhelming for you with everyone looking anyway. The last thing you would probably have been thinking was about what I was wearing. So if anything, we got to enjoy that moment of the reveal more by the fact we just did it between the two of us at home.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so if anyone's kind of, keeps thinking, I'd really like to show my fiance what I'm going to wear, but people might judge me, I'd really say go for it. It took so much of the pressure off. And I get wanting that big reveal, but it's just if you feel like it's going to make you feel more comfortable, then 100% do it. I also wore trainers that had flashing laces.
Yeah.
So anything, even if it's not what you typically see brides wearing or grooms wearing, you know, whoever's listening, if it's going to make you feel like you, it's going to make you have fun, go for it. Like, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks about it other than you. Another one of the things is that we spent the night before together. It's quite traditional to sleep separately. But again, in terms of us staying calm, I knew if I'd gone to my parents the night before, I would have just been lying awake all night. Being together felt like more sticking with our routine, more of the norm. And I was actually able to get some sleep.
Yeah.
But I'd encourage people, if that's what you want to do, then for goodness sake, just do it. You know,
if that's what you need to get you in a nice chill state of mind, then yeah, like that's being in the right headspace and relaxed headspace is you know, more important than forcing yourself to go along with you know, standard protocols expected by other people.
100%. And we had a really long conversation about the first dance. We knew both of us would find it terrifying, but also both of us wanted to do it. So we actually chose a very untraditional clubby song and only choreographed kind of the first 30 seconds of it, and then got everyone else to join us on the dance floor.
That's it.
And it was finding that hybrid between, you know, the norm, the tradition, what you often see, but still changing it in a way to make us feel comfortable and make it feel like us.
That's it. It's almost that blending the because you know they're not, you know, in no way want to say that, you know, tradition is bad, but if it's not what you want to do or what you feel comfortable with, but yes, it's a nice way to pay homage to that particular element of tradition, and but do it in our way so that we felt comfortable and
it didn't detract from the day.
That's it, yeah.
And I think there are quite a lot of other kind of small things we did. We didn't follow the traditional top table seating plan of, because Chris's parents aren't together. We thought that was very complicated. You couldn't pick one set of parents over the other. And actually we knew it would feel less formal for both of us to have a couple of bridesmaids and a couple of groomsmen up on the top table with us instead of family.
It was like a dinner and drinks with mates, really, wasn't it? Which was really relaxing.
Yeah, exactly. The only other thing I was going to add is about the wedding speeches. I did a wedding speech, which is, you know, you don't often get the bride doing it. But I had stuff that I wanted to say because we weren't doing our own vows. Part of the reason was because you struggle with these traditional things and kind of when it comes to more of the social formalities. So with the thank yous for people that helped us set up, oh, don't the bridesmaids look beautiful, which they did. Thanking my parents, I knew that would feel a lot more outside of your comfort zone than mine.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it
very
worked
much
quite
so.
well. And we just said to our wedding party, if anyone wants to do a speech, they can. There was no pressure on getting anyone to do it just because they were the best man or.
That's it. Yeah. Of course, there were, a response that I got from one or two people was, I'll do one if you want me to," which was entirely not. I didn't want people to feel obligated to, because I knew that it was a big deal for me. And if I was at someone else's wedding and I was obligated to do a speech, that would be terrifying. And I wouldn't ever want to put that on someone. So I had to, everyone was very wanting to make me happy, but being able to coax out of them the, do they want to, or are they just trying to placate me? But
Not doing it just out of obligation.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And actually, yeah, the people that did a speech are natural social public speakers, and those that didn't, it's not their bag, and I have absolutely no feelings against them at all for that. It's
And I'd say the exception to that is my dad, who's definitely got his own brand and flavour of neurospicy. And there was a lot of will he, won't he, of doing a speech and walking me down the aisle because. And actually, in the end, he made the decision that he wanted to, and his speech was fantastic.
it was so good.
So those were kind of some of the ways that we reclaimed how we wanted to do our wedding day and made it feel like us. But I think we've done that in other parts, even in the build up to the wedding with your stag do and my hen.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I had a female friend there, which was great, and I went to her hen do. But yeah, and there were some people that they weren't against it. They were just really surprised that was the decision. She's an absolute legend, and probably got more balls than half the people that went. So it definitely it definitely didn't detract from it at all.
Yeah, and similarly, I had one of my best friends, a guy, come to my hen do, and there was only, whereas you had 20 something people at yours, and then a girl, I had kind of six, I think, six girls at mine, and then my friend, my male friend. But I knew it would make the week feel more special by having him there, and he's been such a big part of my life. He's one of my oldest friends, and we've already always got on because we've got the same level of silliness and light and fun. So a bit like what you were saying, I knew that he'd kind of add to the
Bring the
hen do
right energy,
vibes.
yeah.
Yeah. But so he's married with kids, and I know that his wife was saying that their friends found it very weird that he was about to go off on a hen do.
I think almost a sort of tangential thing is having friends of the opposite gender. Some people can find that very, very odd or threatening or anything like that.
Yeah, just because one of you is a male and one of you is a female, it shouldn't mean that friendship has to be different. And
No,
it's a weird thing that our society's decided. But
this is it. This is it. Yeah, they've I people love the idea of maybe it's gossip or anything like that. But it's someone's friends with this person, so there must be something going on. It's like, well, no, these are friends that you have a really good time with. Why cut that off just because other people basically can't get their head around it? So
you see it with celebrities all the time, don't you? That, if a celebrity's caught hanging out with a member of the opposite sex, another celebrity, or a castmate, they've gone out for dinner or gone to a party together, they must be dating. It's not even a consideration that they might just be
oh
friends.
god, yeah, you can imagine all of the front page of every magazine would be plastered with suspicions of this, that, and the other, and
Yeah.
it's kind of been really sort of dramatized, the concept of it. Yeah, I wonder if that's almost guided, the societal way of thinking to be more suspicious or looking out for that sort of friendship. in that perspective, you know, which is a shame because intergender friendships are pretty chill.
Can be very valuable.
That's it. That's it. And also, you know, if you're hanging about, you know, having some drinks, you can get, you know, perspective from the opposite gender that maybe you wouldn't have. And, you know, especially there's a lot of like perspectives, you know, from everywhere, then hopefully it will keep you in as a much more well-rounded individual.
I think the other thing about both my hen and your stag do is how civil they were. You see a lot of stuff about, I mean, particularly for stag do's, it's all about humiliating the stag as much as possible and getting the stag as drunk as possible or as close to death as possible.
Yeah. It's I mean, yes, it was. We certainly partied, and there's a lot of photo and video evidence to suggest we definitely had a good time. Um, but yeah, you know, I know that my groomsmen know that humiliating me or degrading me as part of the stag ritual, it just wouldn't have been fun. So I'm very grateful that they didn't do that, but you know, also had lots of fun.
Pushing you just enough outside of your comfort zone that it's memorable, but not so much that that kind of autism shutdown kicks in and you would have just not experienced any of it.
Very much so, yeah.
I mean, if we're looking back at our wedding journey, it all started with the proposal, the start of the engagement. And that really makes me think of what you were saying at the start of the episode about not even knowing about some of these traditions existing. And I guess it really made me realise that if you've never grown up watching romantic comedies or reading books about proposals or weddings, I get how there are these big things these big gaps that you might have in your kind of understanding of common practices.
Yeah. So yes, when I proposed, I didn't give the sort of the loving speech of, you know, how amazing you are and you know, the best part of my life, etc., and wanted to spend the rest of my life with you with the whole big romantic words. Personally, I felt that was implied by the proposal itself, but I didn't quite realise that was necessarily the what was meant to have happened. And opening with, "Could you please be quiet? I have something to say." Whilst you were trying to list off all the lunch options was maybe not the most traditional way of kicking off that interaction.
We'll have to share our proposal story at some point, but yeah, also the context that I am covered in dog's vomit, had not slept much the night before, and was very close to being unemployed because I was about to lose my job. It was all not the standard mindset of someone that to have one of the most positive, life-changing moments.
That's it.
But it was lovely, and it was so us, and it is very funny because whenever we're watching something now where a proposal does come up, which I guess because it now has a little bit more relevance to you, you pay a bit more attention to it. And there's there's always that long, heartfelt speech, and we will just look at each other and kind of have a giggle.
This is it, yeah. Or being done in public, again, doing anything publicly isn't particularly within my favourite things to do. But yes, a lot of the scenes you'll see are the getting down on one knee in a restaurant, and the thought of that just really doesn't appeal.
It's funny because I've always had this weird thing where I don't really feel like I've experienced my feelings or experienced something until I've spoken to someone about it. So I very much rely on my friends, on my partner, on my parents to kind of almost validate my feelings and experiences. It's very weird. But I had always pictured myself getting engaged either at a dinner and then going to a party where all my friends are there and I get to share that excitement with them. Maybe we used to talk about getting engaged in an aquarium and then people around will kind of clap for you, and I've always had that in my head as how I would be proposed to. And I did have that moment of just real shock But also because before we'd been on this incredible holiday in a 5-star resort watching the sunset. That was kind of the exception to the surrounded by people or, somewhere in a tropical paradise.
That's it. And your friends were speculating as to whether or not I'd proposed then.
Yeah. It wasn't even on my mind that you might propose that day. But in a way, that kind of made it more special. And even though it's not, it sounds harsh to say it's not what I thought I wanted, but it's not, if I was designing my engagement, it definitely wouldn't have looked like that. But it was perfect because we were just in this lovely little couple bubble. We could just hang out. We were camping for the weekend at the time, so it was just the two of us and the dog, and just really soak it in. And I think sometimes you can think that you want something because that's the way you've always seen it. And actually, it's really lovely, even if it doesn't follow that exact blueprint.
Yeah, that's it.
And we got to go and tell the campsite owner that we got engaged.
Exactly. So my pro tip is really try and snag them when they're at a low point in life. That's a
guaranteed
joke.
Yes.
That's a joke. Yes.
He does make them sometimes.
I do make them sometimes, and but I did think as you were listing off the context, that is kind of how cults work with getting people to join. So just. This marriage was not coerced.
I think with proposals, people can get in their heads a lot about it not being this picture perfect, almost over the top thing. Particularly with the Instagram reels you see these days, there are some insane proposals that go around online, and you can get a bit in that, but it didn't look like this, or there wasn't as much money spent, or there wasn't as much preparation as this thing I've seen. But actually, that's not what it's about.
There's almost this competing to out showmanship,
yeah.
Which almost negates from the original point of it, where it at its heart it's meant to be an intimate moment between two people, which
100%. I think we can get into that whole comparison thing when it comes to things like tradition and expectation. Actually, not treasure something for how special and unique it is for us. And something else I'd say that kind of fits into that category is my engagement ring.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking that. Yeah, the style of it and the stone. It's a sort of like a twisted tree branch as a ring with a little maple leaf and a turquoise stone. Possibly a bit selfish, but I don't particularly like the the big diamond ring look. And I thought, if I'm going to marry someone and I'm going to give them a lovely piece of jewellery that they're going to wear for the rest of their life, I'd quite like to find it pleasant to look at. So
that was me thinking you chose it because it felt like me.
Well, no, 100%, yes. But it's that blend of, it's a very us style ring.
Yes, and it's also very me. And I did have a moment of, but it's not sparkly, and then instantly fell in love with it when I wore it. And I think what made me love it even more is when we were speaking about it, and I was very interested. I knew it wouldn't be diamond. I'm not really a diamond girl, but speaking to Chris about how he narrowed down the fact it was a turquoise stone. And you were talking about the effects of turquoise with anxiety, which is something I've always struggled with. And then the connection between turquoise and Native American jewellery. And I've always been a little bit more kind of connected to nature and a little bit hippie and earthy in a way. And there's just been so much thought behind it, rather than you went into a ring shop and it was shiny and pretty. And it's made me love it so much more because it is so unique and so us.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, finally about the engagement itself was that I didn't ask for your father's permission. Two reasons. Firstly, I know that we both find that very awkward, and
you both being you and my dad.
Yes, yeah. Me and your dad wouldn't. I don't think we'd really know how to deal with that situation. So we'd both just sort of implode on ourselves. Unless we were really drunk, but then I don't think I could have hidden that from you.
Just going out on the lash with your dad.
That's it. Yeah. But also, I don't like the idea of sort of parental authority over an adult. I very much respect your dad, but I do feel the decision is entirely yours and only yours.
100%. It's like, I love the fact that he walked me down the aisle, and that meant a lot to me. But there was the option of, I think it's called the giving away of the bride when they get to the end of the aisle. Often it's the girl's dad, and we just did not want that as part of our ceremony.
No, that
because, as you were saying, like it's my choice.
That's it. That's it.
Completely respect people that do want that, but I don't think that you should feel obliged to just because other people do it, or maybe there's pressure from your family to do it that way. If it doesn't feel comfortable, then don't do it.
No, that's it. But I think that also ties in with that parental authority is just assumed by so many people because traditionally it's there. But and I think people either do or don't do things purely because they think their parents want them to or don't want them to, or it would rock the boat. But at the end of the day, that's sort of undermining your own autonomy, which I disagree with personally. I'm more than happy to listen and take advice from my parents. I'm my own person and will be both make my own decision, and I'll be responsible for the outcome of those decisions. I wouldn't want to ever feel like I couldn't do anything because it would upset any person.
Yeah, that's a really, really valid point, and I'm sure everyone feels that way, but I think being neurospicy, we struggle even more with being told what to do by someone.
I do have a bit of an issue with authority.
It's very important for us to feel like we have autonomy in our decisions, but then on the flip side of that, I always very much crave my parents' approval, so it's that very weird space to live in. But I think a lot of adults, people in their 30s, and potentially the whole point that your parents are around, feel that they almost live their lives to get their parents' approval, or to appease their parents, or to do what their families want them to do, or meet traditions. As you're saying at the start of this, it might be a cultural thing or a generational thing, but then you're not living your life for yourself.
No, that's it. As you're saying, there are some cultures that do have a lot more weight on what previous generations are expecting of you, which fair enough. All cultures do their thing, but that doesn't. That's not my preference.
Yeah, and if you're in that sort of culture, it's probably easier said than done. To be baby steps. But if quite often, I think we're the ones that put this. We almost put the pressure on ourselves to make mummy and daddy happy, and sometimes you don't even realise you're doing something necessarily for someone else's approval. If you are in a cultural position where you're very much tied into that, that's probably a very, very difficult thing to step out of.
Yes.
But if you're not, then checking in with yourself, and any decision in life, checking in with yourself and thinking, are you making this decision for yourself, or are you doing it because that's what your parents would want, or what society would want you to do?
Very much so, very much so. Or are you just being a people pleaser?
Another thing I struggle with. That you don't struggle with.
No.
You're very happy to be a people displeaser.
People assuming that I'll just do something or will go along with something, and without consulting me, I'll immediately be like, well, no. But it's something I've been working on.
So there's been a lot in kind of our journey from getting engaged to now being husband and wife that we've done, not necessarily the way that other people would do it. But I think even before we got engaged, our whole relationship is kind of just a series of doing things very differently, but in a way that works from us. The fact that this is our third time of being together.
That's it, yeah.
We've had three separate relationships with each other over the 17 years. And a lot of people, there's that whole never go back to an ex, or things won't change. And I think there was a lot of judgment, particularly this time when we got back together after 5 years of being friends.
That's it. It's there seems to be a prevailing thought that people can't change, but I think what's sort of caused this or reinforces it is that change is really difficult. I spent a lot of time working on myself to be able to sort of interact with people easier and just generally be a lot happier because I wasn't constantly butting up against either other people or situations. I was, being able to cope with things better. Change and positive change is difficult and takes a long time. It can be one of those things that people just assume that it can't be done. But yes, and I know you've worked on some of your personal bits and pieces, and yeah, we both happen to be single. Actually, the bits that we'd worked on, independently for ourselves, actually made us more compatible than we were previously, which was lovely. And yeah, so we decided to give it a go. And because previously, our particular forms of neurospicy made it somewhat turbulent, and our friends saw all of that. Yeah, they were very cautious, about us forming a relationship again, purely because it could, it can be very common to just fall back into the same sort of habits and patterns, but that didn't happen. So
Yeah, and I think if we put too much stock in what other people thought and what people thought we should do, I know that there wasn't a long gap between my previous relationship and us getting back together, and even though we'd stayed friends for the 5 years that we weren't, but I think if we put so much stock in what other people thought, then we wouldn't be together now.
no, exactly.
We're both really happy and it's worked, and ultimately, sometimes you give things a go and they don't work out, but ultimately you know you better than anyone else. You know what's good for you better than anyone else. Don't let other people's opinions or judgments stop you from doing something you want to do.
No, exactly. We won all of each other's respective friends round, and the wedding was awesome. They all loved it, and yeah, they see we're amazing together.
Yeah, I think the main point of all this waffling of what we're trying to get to, that we do keep coming back to, is live your life for you, do things how you want to do them, and don't worry too much about what other people think, how other people think you should do things, or what you're seeing on Instagram, what you're seeing in movies. Kind of shape the life that looks like how you want it to look, and that's different for everyone.
Yeah, very true, very true.
So to wrap up this episode, let's end on a little bit of positivity. So what are you looking forward to most about the week ahead?
Yeah, getting back into working out again. That's I feel I know for me it makes a massive difference with my mental health. I feel much more motivated and energized. So and also when I'm working out, I feel like an absolute Herculean man beast. So looking forward to that. How about you?
I am going to a little local festival with a couple of my bridesmaids. So listening to some live music and getting my dance on is always something that makes me feel very myself and very happy and connected. So we're both doing things for our mental health.
Nice, lovely.
And we'd love it if you're listening along, if you let us know what you're looking forward to this week. You can comment on the episode, or you can comment on Instagram, however you're seeing this. Let us know, and let's just get a little bit of a positivity wave going around there. But thank you for listening, and hopefully you will join us again. We are going to talk in a little bit more detail about our own flavours of neurospicy and how that impacts us in our relationship. And yeah, we'll talk about a lot of other things.
We will.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.